This is a 2008 Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. Now I know that's two manufacturers in the same car, which seems kind of odd, but remember this comes from a time when Mercedes actually owned 40% of the McLaren Corporation. So Mercedes made a concept car, gave it to McLaren and said, can you guys make this? Because McLaren at the time had way more composite and carbon fiber technology than Mercedes ever did in-house. And so they produced this, the SLR McLaren. And don't get me wrong, it is almost 100% McLaren, just financed by Mercedes. Mercedes got to put their symbol on it. But this thing was even designed and assembled in England like a real McLaren. Now, these cars originally were only available in hardtop form, but starting in 2008, you could get this, the Roadster. And in my opinion, it's the one to have because you can have your wild looks, cool side pipes, and the wind in your hair as well. Now, this car has a lot of cool details, but I gotta kind of pull you in closer to show you all of them. This thing is awesome. So moving around the McLaren SLR, it really is hard to tell unless you're in person just how exaggerated and long the front end of this car is, but it's so cool because that's the traditional, Roadster thing, like big, long front end, little tiny rear end with a short cabin. It's just an awesome look. You've got these cool hood vents, these huge exaggerated side vents, and then of course, you've got the turbine wheels, and in here, this is one of the first cars with carbon ceramic brakes for the road. Now that's a pretty cool deal that we'll talk about when we drive it. Over here, hard to see because it's a black car, but this car is actually equipped with side pipes, and when we move around to the rear, you actually see that this wasn't just a cool feature, it was actually necessary with the bodywork for aerodynamics on this car. Now, one thing the coupe had that I was worried the Roadster wouldn't have was cool butterfly doors, but the engineers at McLaren figured out a way to retain these cool butterfly doors even on the Roadster, and there is nothing like popping these doors when you arrive, believe me. But this actually shows off part of the McLaren part of this car, which I guess is the whole thing. But right here, this whole thing is a carbon fiber monocoque chassis, just like you'd find on supercars, because this is, whether you want to call it or not, a supercar, it is. It's got a carbon fiber monocoque. Inside, you've got Mercedes switchgear, but you also have these fixed single piece carbon fiber seats. Now that's not very Mercedes-like, is it? It sounds more like McLaren. And you'll notice even on the gauges here, it says McLaren. So they stuck their symbol in wherever they possibly could. Moving on to the rear here, you do have like a fixed hard tonneau style soft top, but you've got a regular trunk that's usable, these really cool taillights. Now this is where a lot of their aerodynamics are visible. So back here you have these really aggressive rear diffusers, and it's really hard to tell again on black, but how deep and big these things are, and you can see exactly why they had to equip this car with side pipes. Now up top here, this is actually a movable piece of bodywork. It's not only a retractable spoiler, but at certain speeds and under certain braking force, it actually will come almost full 90 degrees to act as a full air brake, which I think is possibly one of the coolest things ever fitted to a car. And it's all in a kind of unassuming package with the door closed and the spoiler not up. You could kind of get away with telling people this is just a really big Mercedes SL, but it's not. Now, on to the main part of the show, the powerhouse of the SLR McLaren. And even opening the hood is kind of cool on this work of art. Let me show you. This whole thing is one big clamshell, and to open it, you actually have to pull it forward first on these little rockers. Hold on. And so it comes forward, and it's on a set of rails, and it stops, and then you tilt practically the whole front end of the car up. And in here, you will see the 5.4 liter supercharged V8. And what's cool is this whole front thing here, this isn't the engine at all. This is just intake. The engine starts quite a bit behind the rear wheels, making this a front mid-engine car. And it's got twin intercoolers. It's just amazing. And my favorite feature, you can see all the exposed carbon fiber. This is actually part of the structure of the car and the bodywork. But my favorite cool feature that you can see a little easier when the hood's down, if you follow that intake all the way, you can see that the Mercedes symbol on the front of the car is actually the ram air intake. So, Hellcats have that little hole that was a cool ram air intake. This is the classier version of that. The Mercedes symbol is the thing that's sucking in all the air for this massive engine. Now, looking at this thing is cool, but what's even cooler is getting it out on the road and hearing that supercharger and feeling the wind in your hair. So, all right, out on the road in the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. Now, it's hard to describe without actually doing it, but the dimensions of this car are just impossible to fathom, even when you're behind the wheel. The nose is so far in front of you, but you just know it. It feels like you're kind of driving Cruella de Vil's car with like an impossibly long hood. But other than that, it feels kind of like you're in a Mercedes, because you have this early 2000s Mercedes switchgear, but it feels nice. If you didn't remember from when you got in the car, you really could trick yourself into thinking you're just kind of driving an SL. That is until you see the McLaren badges on the gauges. And you remember, oh yeah, I am in something special. And then you kind of give your foot to the floor and, oh my. That acceleration is so brutal and strong. And even with this 5-speed automatic, another complaint about this car is, oh, well, it's not quite a supercar because it's got a slushy automatic. Trust me, it does a great job of propelling the SLR into the stratosphere when you bury your right foot. Another thing that this car got some complaints about when it was new, but I think is kind of neat, is this has what's called like sensotronic braking. Remember I said it had carbon ceramic brake discs, but it also has a form of brake by wire. It's interesting as far as brake feel goes, because you tap the brake and I mean, you probably a normal amount of pressure, which I'm doing right now, the brake pedal hasn't moved an inch. So you kind of have to get busy with the brakes. But when you do, those carbon ceramic brakes will slow you down from quite an insane speed. And speaking of which, I want to experience the insane speed again. So one moment. Oh my, I mean, unreal. That is, it is unreal. It is seriously a never stopping wave of torque and power and sound. There is nothing like this car. And then it calms right down. No big deal. Put it back in comfort, drive 300 miles. There are not a lot of cars that can do what this car can do. I love this thing. It truly, truly is the best of both worlds. What a car from start to finish. Now, whether you think it's a Grand Tourer or a supercar, I think it's a little bit of both in the best way possible.